In this video, let's talk about separating zippers and bias tape hems. Let's get into it. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth from ElizabethMavis.com, and we are finishing up my series on making a little quilted vest. We've been talking about this the last several videos. I will pop in the playlist so you can check out all the steps for putting together a coat, a little coat like this. And even though we're making a toddler coat, you can totally make one for yourself. I gave you lots of ideas for different patterns that would work for you, and we've just broken it down step by step. And yeah, definitely go out check out all the videos in that playlist so that the next time you want to make yourself a quilted garment, boom, you can go through the steps and see how you walk through the process of putting one together. So today we're going to put in a separating zipper in our little jacket, and then we're going to finish off the hem with bias tape just to make everything nice and neat and clean and lovely. And yeah, I will see you in the next clip. So you can see my vest is now really starting to look like a real garment. So now we gotta add our separating zipper. So this one is way longer than I need, which is good. It is way better problem to have a way too long zipper than a not too long, any too short zipper. And I have bought many zippers that were far too short, and it was very sad. So I'm gonna take the slider side, the one that has the slider, because I think this is the harder one to deal with, and the first side of a separating zipper is always the easier one to sew in. So if you can do the slider one as your first side, it's going to be a lot easier to line up the second one. So I'm going to stop at the bottom of my slider. I want the bottom of the zipper to be at 3/4 above where the bottom of my raw hem is. So this is where that I can't talk. 3/4 of an inch up is where I want my hem to be after I put my bias binding. So my bias binding I want to end like right there. So if I have it below, then I'm not gonna be able to zip my jacket up. So I'm gonna make sure that my zipper is way up and out of the way. So the first thing that you want to do is set your zipper down, and then you want to flip it. Your teeth want to be facing towards the side seam. That is the most important thing about separating zippers when you're sewing them in, is that the teeth are facing the side seam. Normally I would interface the back of this so that it was nice and secure, but because we're working with quilted fabric, there's like enough layers here that this zipper is not going to move around unless I tell it to. So I am just going to give one pin at the bottom of this guy. I'm actually not going to pin it because this is just really difficult. I am just going to put a couple of stitches in there, and I'm lining up my teeth with my center front line, which is right there. This is one of the kinds where we are just sewing just kind of an exposed zipper almost. So I'm going to start sewing about so I've got a 5/8 inch seam allowance here for my zipper, and I'm going to sew like 3 inches above where my zipper teeth end, making sure that my stop is right where I want it to end. Okay, at this point it's okay for me to move my slider out of the way. I just wanted to make sure that it was nice and secure. And sew all the way down to the bottom and go ahead and backstitch. Most separating zippers have some kind of like plasticky bottom to them, and they often don't like to be, stitched over, and that is just okay. So now I'm going to move this out, and I'm actually going to sew this way. gonna sew this way. No, I'm not. So now I'm gonna just bring my teeth up towards my top. It probably would have been a better idea for us to do the zipper before the hood, because the hood is ending right at center front, but it's just fine to do it this way too. Again, I'm lining up my teeth with my center front line. Sewing with back 5/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, now I want to top stitch my zipper. So I'm flipping all of this to the inside. And at this point, like, go ahead and, it's totally okay to clip your zipper. Just don't bring it all the way up to the top so you don't lose your slider. But we'll just get rid of that. This is a nylon zipper, so I'm not really worried about sewing over it or doing anything weird. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so now I'm just gonna flip my zipper to the inside, and I am just gonna top stitch down there, which is gonna flatten everything out and make everything nice and pretty. And I'm gonna start right in the neck seam. That's gonna be my first stitch. And I'm going to top stitch at the top. I'm sorry, back stitch at the top, just to make sure that it's nice and secure. Okay, at some point when you get down towards the bottom, go ahead and move your slider out of the way so you can keep on going. Hopefully you can grab that same stitch so you don't have a weird hiccup. Drop your needle back and then just go ahead down to the bottom. And so there's the first side of your zipper, no problem. And now we have to do the second side of the zipper. And the second side of the separating zippers is always the hardest one because you have to make sure that everything is nice and lined up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it into the bottom of my slider. And I've already marked where the bottom of my staff needs to be. And I am going to, again, just take it out, flip it so that the teeth are facing the side seam. And I am just going to tack down the first, like, inch or so. And I'm also going to go, so now I'm gonna put this back into the slider at the bottom. And you can see like our bottoms are nice and even, so we got that part right. That's good. So now I gotta be careful here. And I'm just gonna mark exactly where the top is gonna meet the center front line with a marker. And I'm just gonna use one of my washable markers. And that is just going to make sure that that's going to match, or we'll get close. So now I'm going to unzip my zipper. And I'm going to flip my teeth back And I'm going to match that mark with where the neckline edge is. And actually I'm gonna put this, mark it on my, I can see that a little bit better. Okay, so I'm marking that and then matching that mark right there. And I am just going to tack the top part of the zipper too. A lot of people like to base the whole zipper, but I feel like if you get the bottom inch and the top inch, then everything else tends to fall in place. Sometimes, especially when you're working with plastic zippers, they will go super wavy if you manipulate them too much, even if you have interfaced really well. So if you can just, you know, do that bottom inch, do the top inch, and just check to make sure that your zipper, everything is nice and lined up, then you're gonna have a way better time with putting in the zipper. Okay, so this is me just double checking. Okay, so I double checked. I briefly lost my slider there for a second. So now, my everything's in place, and all I have to do is go top to bottom to top, I should say, with the other side of my zipper. Again, I'm keeping my teeth right where my center line is. And you can see like the tape is a little bit like, just kind of pull everything upwards and you'll get a nice clean zipper. You can see I've got a little bit more tape than I do fabric, but this has no give, and the tape has a little bit of give. So if I kind of just curve my hands up, it'll kind of ease the zipper back into where it needs to be. It's still not going to be a wavy zipper like, you know, sometimes you can get. So now the only thing I need to do is top stitch this side of the zipper. So I'm going to flip everything back around to this side and start down the bottom of my tape. And that last stitch is going to be right in that neck seam. I'm just going to move my hood, the end of my hood out of the way so I don't catch it. And then back stitch a few stitches, and then forward, and then back maybe a couple more times. Okay, we are getting close to the end. Woohoo! Now, if you really don't like this bit, you can maybe take another step and just cover the edge of that with bias binding, or you can just zigzag over that. It's a personal preference. Your zipper's not going to go anywhere. It's nice and, you know, it's nice and secure. I am going to clip the end of my zipper now so that it's even with my seam allowance for the neck edge. Now what I'm going to do is just finish off the neck edge. A lot of times in ready-to-wear jackets, you'll see people, they'll have, you know, some kind of neck binding, either twill tape, or sometimes you'll see grosgrain ribbon, or like a knit, a piece of knit binding, but it's really common, especially with hoods, to see some kind of finishing tape there. So in our case, we're just going to use more of the same bias binding, and I'm just going to sew it to, I'm going to sew it from the neck, from the hood side, and I'm just going to fold back my raw edge here a little bit, and I'm going to sew it just really close. I'm going to make sure that I go over my zipper, actually, because I want to make sure that that's totally inside of the finished edge. I'm going to sew it again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We'll see if my sometimes these things are very hard to maneuver. Okay, so now I'm just going to sew. The end of my bias tape is even with the end of the raw top of my zipper. And I'm going to sew the binding, the seam is up and flat. I've got my hood folded back towards the neck, and I'm just sewing my bias tape on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's not super critical that you're getting this. What is critical is that it's just going to cover over. You know, if you're a little bit under the 1/4 inch or you're a little bit over it, it's okay. But mostly you want to make sure that it's attached to the neckline. That's what's important here. This is kind of a bulky finish, but we're gonna flatten it out here in a second, so it'll be not quite so bad. But right now, this spot is quite bulky. That is why it's really nice to make bias tape out of really lightweight fabrics, like cotton voile. Cotton voile, I think, is my favorite for bias tape, because there's so many different fun prints, and then it's so lightweight. So even when you have all this bulk going on, it is just not a big deal. I'm getting close to the end, so I've just cut my tape a little bit past the edge of my zipper, and I'm going to make sure that this is going to end right where my zipper is ending, the top of my zipper is ending, so that I can make sure that I cover over the zipper edge. So there's nothing worse than a pokey zipper. Alright. So at this point we don't have to worry about the zipper going anywhere on us. It's being covered over. And now we're just going to fold everything back on itself. And I mean, if we were using any other kind of fabric, obviously this would be the time to give everything a really great press. But the thin slit kind of like melts on contact when you try and press it. So I would not recommend pressing this, actually. So when you can't press, then you just use your hands. And getting this started is going to be the worst part, because there's just a lot of layers here. So if you can kind of get it started, I'm actually going to turn it around so I'm not back stitching on this, because sometimes that's easier. And then kind of go over the front like that. So basically we're making like a big U a big, long, skinny U with our binding stitch. Somehow I lost my thread in there. How did that happen? That's weird. Alright, flip everything around again. Woo! Once you get going, you'll be just fine. Okay, do make sure though that the neck is gonna be nice and flat. You don't want to make sure that you're not like pulling this over so that you're sewing this somewhere in the body of the vest. You really don't want to have to take these stitches out if you don't have to. Okay, so as you're going around, because I mean the neckline is curved, so just make sure that everything is staying nice and flat. I'm getting close to center back here. You can see our cute little hanging loop is going to be facing down now, which is good. That's where we want it to be. I'm getting close to the end. That is the nice thing about kids' clothes, that the seams are very short. So even if you're manhandling things, the struggle doesn't last very long. But that's okay. I think this is just going to be such a cute little vest. Right. Getting close to the end, and I'm just going to pivot one last time so I can finish off my long skinny U. Back stitch just a little bit. And now I don't have to worry about my zipper coming off anymore because it's all nice and secure in my neckline. And now everything is just done except for my hem. So the very last thing that I've got to do is add the hem with my bias tape. So this is my wider bias tape, and I'm just going to fold back a little bit of this. So, and I'm going to go from the wrong side of my jacket, and I keep saying jacket, vest. I'm going to sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And it's not really a seam allowance because we're just enclosing the raw edge. So actually, you know, any hem allowance that you have on a jacket, if you're gonna finish it like this, just cut off the hem allowance because you're just wrapping the bias around the hem. So it's actually not a hem allowance at all. And again, this is that wider 2.5 inch strips of bias that I cut earlier, and I had to unpick some stuff, so I'm getting rid of my threads. Again, this is that wider 2.5 inch wide strips of bias that I cut, and then I pressed it in half, so it's 1.25 inches, and now we're sewing it at 3/8 of an inch against the raw edge of the bottom of the vest. As you get to the end, I'm going to go a little bit further here. As you get to the end, go ahead and fold back that extra bit. Guys, turn off the music! Guys, I have one step left. Please, just turn off the music. So as you get to the end, just fold back that raw edge of your tape so that it's even with the front edge of your jacket, vest. I keep saying jacket. All right, there we go. It's finally playing nice. Just a little bit. Okay, now the only thing we gotta do is flip the binding over the edge of the hem, and we're gonna cover our stitching line basically with the binding, and just top stitching down the binding in place, and that is it. So I'm not folding any part of the hem up. That raw edge is totally enclosed inside of the binding. And I'm not trimming it either, because if I trim it, then I might go past that point where I had where it's stitched before, and then my hem's gonna be all kind of like wonky. That's why we're using extra wide binding. That is another advantage of making your own bias tape, is that you can cut it, however wide it is that you need it to be. Has some extra loose threads here. I'm just pulling out. And that's it. The only thing that you have to do now is just throw your vest through the wash so that you get rid of all of the lines on the fabric. Do not throw this in a hot dryer. either let it air dry, or if you have a cycle that has no heat on it, like a fluff cycle, I think, do that, because the thinsulate could kind of be compromised in a heated environment. So just put it in an air dryer kind of situation, and you've got a new beautiful vest. That's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with your friends. And if you have made yourself a quilted garment and you've used my tutorials here, please let me know. Like, shoot me an email, elizabethmadethis@gmail.com, or hit me up on Instagram @elizabethmadethis. I'd love to see your projects. It would be really cool for me. So yeah, thank you for watching this series, and thanks for being a part of my channel. Happy sewing! Almost lost my slider. No. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends.